an Apex Lab podcast. Hey there, welcome to the Level Up Engineering Podcast, where we speak to the most experienced technology leaders from around the world. So stay with us to learn actionable management insights to take your engineering team to the next level. This show is powered by Apex Lab, a team of experts in end-to-end digital product development. ApexLab.io.
Hi, everyone. I am Carolina Toth, and this is the Level Up Engineering Podcast. We have a new sponsor, Apex Lab, since we have this awesome setup here in the studio. And today is my pleasure to welcome another seasoned technology leader, Dan Lines. Today, we will talk about an awesome topic, which is about how engineering leaders should really make an effort to communicate their team's impact to the company at large. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm totally stoked to be here. This is going to be awesome.
Yes, I hope so too. Dan is co-founder and COO of LinearB, and I will allow him to tell us a bit about the company. And he's also host of the Dev Interrupted podcast, which has been going on since 2020. So please, Dan, introduce yourself to our listeners who may have not met you before. What should we know about you?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for the warm intro. Yeah, my name is Dan Lines. I am the founder of LinearB. I do have the Dev Interrupted podcast, all of that kind of stuff. But really, to get to know me a little bit and my vibe, I was that kind of kid growing up that was always trying to start a company. I was kind of that entrepreneurship type. And it depends how old you are, but I grew up in the 90s, and I was the person that was either selling CDs when we used to burn CDs back in the day. I used to build computers and sell, computers at my school. So I always kind of had a little side gig going on. I did go to school and got my computer science degree, so I am formally trained and that type of thing. But I'm also the type of person that's worked at startups my entire life. And even before I founded LinearB, my last role, I was the VP of engineering of a cloud security company, had about 100 people on my team, and we were acquired by Cisco. And I learned a ton of stuff about being an engineering leader there. It was really hard. And actually that experience is what allowed me to found LinearB. And other than that, just like the human side of me, I have, I'm married. I have my wife, Lauren. I have a 3-year-old daughter. I have a baby, a new one on the way any day from now. And that's why, usually we don't do this on podcasts, but I have my phone on in case my wife is giving me the call saying, hey, the baby's coming now. So that's a little bit about me. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. While I do hope that your baby is not going to drop on the way while we are having this conversation. So on to today's topic, we will talk about how engineering leaders should help their team get recognized within the larger side of the company and how their team's impact can be realized within the leadership. So let's start with that. Before we get into the deep dive, what are some of the tips that you want to get out there?
Where I would start is we're kind of in this golden era right now. We're in an amazing time for engineering leaders. I don't think, honestly, there's been an ever better time to be either like a VP of engineering, a manager, a director, that type of person. And the reason why is a lot of companies around the world right now, they're product companies. What does that mean? Software is key to their success. And when software is key to your success and you're an engineering leader, it means that the business is relying on you more and more and more. So a lot of what we're doing at LinearB, we kind of have this concept. It's like, we call it the dual mandate. Most of us who have been in engineering for 30 years, when we created our craft, it was all around, okay, what's the quality going out of the software? How efficiently can we get it out there? How's production running? you're going to look at some of those metrics like cycle time, change failure rate, deployment frequency, all of that stuff. And that's wonderful. And we should keep doing that. But now we're in this era where the other side of the dual mandate is actually called business alignment. And that is about how me as an engineering leader, how do I contribute back to the business, or how do I impact the business? And we can dive into there, like as far as you want to go. Some of the things that I see the most elite engineering leaders in the world are doing, they would do something like this. They would say, hey, I'm coming to my executive meeting every week, or I'm coming to the board meeting, and I'm visualizing for the executive staff our resource allocation. What are we investing into? How many people are working on each project? Are we investing into things like keeping the lights on versus new value versus feature enhancements? What are our goals around that? I mean, that's one place that it starts. And I've seen an evolution in the industry. If you're listening and you want to be like, one of the top 10%, let's say engineering leaders in the world, that's the kind of stuff that's happening now at the executive table. And that's, one kind of thing that I'm passionate about that I think we'll dive into here today together.
Right. I love this topic because usually we talk about how the leadership should communicate the company vision to the developers and how they should be given motivation through them building the product and stuff like that. But now we are flipping it around and talking about how a good leader should actually make their team's work visible.
Yes.
So why do you think it's important for engineering leaders today to go the other way around and show what their team is doing?
Well, one of them is more like kind of like a personal, mission that myself and my co-founder Ori are on. And it's honestly doesn't even have to necessarily do with LinearB, like our company, even though we supply a lot of this stuff. We love seeing engineering leaders actually have a real business seat at the table. And what does that mean? A lot of us, at least when I first started in the industry, it's like engineering was thought of, oh yeah, they're that team that we tell them what to do and they go build the stuff. And hey, we don't want to get into the details. Just tell us when it's done. And all the quote unquote grown-ups have a seat at the business table and they just tell engineering leadership what to do. And that's not the case anymore. And we're seeing more and more engineering leaders now actually become CEOs, right? And start some of the best companies in the world. The CEO came from an engineering background. And even if they're not becoming a CEO, we're seeing engineering leaders actually now drive the business. And there's two things that the business really wants from you as an engineering leader. One thing is that first thing that I touched on, okay? The business is saying something, hey, your team is actually probably the largest within your organization. And it costs the business the most money in salary, right? You have hundreds of engineers, you have millions of dollars under you. And now you also, hopefully as an engineering leader, understand what the business goal is. Is it to increase ARR? Are we trying to increase revenue? Are we trying to retain our customers more? Are we going up against, competition and we need to differentiate ourselves? So show me, the business, as an engineering leader, how much you're investing into each one of those areas. What percentage investment are you putting into this new value, which is going to help us make sales, versus feature enhancements, which is probably going to help with retention, versus investing into your own developer pipeline? And you can actually now, this is what you do with LinearB, come with that data, visualize and set goals. And just having that basic conversation is going to get you a seat at the table. Imagine coming to, an executive meeting, right? And saying this to the CEO, something that sounds like this. hey, I understand that we need to grow our ARR, so like our revenue, by 2.5x this year. That's what you told me. What I'm going to do is allocate 60% of our engineering resources into new value development. Do you agree that's what will move the needle for the business, or do you want to change that percentage allocation? You come to a meeting like that, you come to a board meeting and start talking like that, they're going to say, whoa, this person really gets it. They're not just like a code monkey that goes and executes whatever we tell them to do. They are driving this business in the way that we want. And so like I have like a personal passion to elevate engineering leaders into that conversation.
I love that. And while you were just explaining that, I thought to myself, I also have that older picture of engineers who don't ever turn the lights on and don't really come out of their little basements. And they don't really care for, what's the business doing or how we are going to drive sales. They care about whether or not it's written in Node.js or Java or .NET or whatever. But I think it's also the maturity of engineering is becoming to the level of the business, like businesses have been around for quite a while, but we are just now realizing the true potential that software is bringing to every kind of business. It's engineers who are open to understanding how the business works and who are open to making an impact on the business that they're working on. They are the people who are going to be most successful in communicating what their team's impact is. And I love how you put it. Even though you are an engineering leader, you should pay attention to whatever the business is doing and help the business succeed in their desired goals. I wanted to switch gears a little bit and say, these are C-level executives or VPs of engineering. Do you have some sort of a tip or idea as to how to help elevate engineering managers or tech leads who want to communicate their team's impact but aren't necessarily in the boardrooms yet?
Yeah, absolutely. What I really like to focus on is I like to focus on project delivery at kind of that team leader level and that director level. And even more important than just project delivery, predictable project delivery. So what does the business need from a director of engineering or a team leader? They want to know, when is the project going to be delivered, and is it going to be delivered on time? And of course, like whenever you're talking about like a project, always sprinkle in, hey, the purpose of this project is, we're going up against big competition. And this project is to, combat that. Or the purpose of this project is, hey, we're having quality issues in production. It's causing customer dissatisfaction. You're working on this project to help our customers. So you always give that context. But with a director or like a team leader, if you want to impress, the business or make your people feel, I think, like amazing about that work, it's all around predictable delivery. How often are you delivering on time when you say you're going to? And a lot of the metrics there that I like to look at are some of those agile behaviors. So we talk at LinearB, this is something that like our product shows, like the planning accuracy and the capacity accuracy. You as a director or a team leader are in control of that. Planning accuracy is saying, are we accomplishing the work that we said we were going to accomplish within a sprint? And capacity accuracy is, we said we could do 100 story points worth of work. How many did we actually do? And what I find is the most elite, I would say directors or team leaders are very, very sharp on their planning and capacity accuracy, which allows them to deliver on time, which allows them to get them and their people recognized by the non-technical folks. Those people, the non-technical people, appreciate projects that are amazing, high quality, delivered on time. So that would be my advice for like a team leader.
What do you think because these metrics are very useful for people who actually understand some of engineering methodologies. But maybe if engineering leaders want to communicate to the different departments that are available within their company, do you think that these would be the best metrics, or do you think that there would be other things that engineering leaders could use to communicate the impact that they're having?
You know what's so funny about it? Like my favorite, what my favorite organization is that's not engineering or product?
What is it?
It is sales. These guys and girls have so much energy and appreciation they really do for engineering, because their livelihood, if you're working in a product company, their livelihood is how great the product is. That's what they sell usually. And so when you give them, as an engineering, let's say team leader or manager, any taste of like almost how the sausage is made, I actually find they don't run away from it. They love it. And I'll give you an example. You go to like a few guys or girls in sales. I know engineers in sales usually don't connect that much. And you say, hey, I just want to let you know some of the KPIs that we are tracking within engineering, because it helps deliver features on time for you. And again, there's two of them. There's planning accuracy and capacity accuracy. And I'd love to share those metrics with you. Let's say over Slack, we're going to post them at the end of each iteration. And you all can look at them. The amount of like enthusiasm and celebration for like hitting the sprint on time or doing a really good job in planning goes up. And they start asking cool questions. Oh, okay, cool. What were you working on? Oh, it was that feature. Oh, this customer that I'm working with really wants that. That's really cool. They like encourage you. So I actually see this amazing chemistry. And I've even seen it to the point where the salesperson starts saying on their sales calls, we have one of the best engineering departments in the world. They're saying it to their customer, right? Because they're usually making promises to that customer on feature delivery. Yeah, we track all of this. We have our resource allocation. We have our cycle time. We have our planning accuracy. We have our capacity. And now you just went as like a team leader and a director from, again, doing some great engineering work to actually being a sales differentiator. That's how much I've seen it work. So that's like a little story that I like to tell.
I love that. I got really, like enthusiastic about it as you were just saying that. So as we know, it's communications. What are some of the platforms? We talked about boardrooms, and we talked about making the call to maybe the sales department. How else do you think engineering leaders should approach this communication matter? And especially in our remote or slightly remote or return to the office remote kind of work, what are some of the channels or tactics that you think engineering leaders should employ?
Well, first and foremost, especially in a remote environment, the language of communication that everyone can understand. It's like, so I'm in the US, you're in Hungary, right?
Right.
You're in Hungary. And I might have developers like when I was a VP of engineering, I had developers in Israel. I had developers in Ukraine, UK, East Coast. The language that everyone understands is actually data. Everyone can read data in numbers. And so the best communication that I see is a data-driven communication on some of these KPIs. And there's a ton of other ones that we talked about. And there's a lot of platforms now that do that for you. My company, LinearB, honestly, is just one of them. You can use LinearB for free. We have a ton of competitors out there too. Go look at the space. It's called software delivery management. These are all these tools that give you this kind of data out of the box. So kind of like, the love language, I think, is data, right? Everyone has a love language. Ours is data. And when you go and communicate data, a lot of times in a remote environment, like we're using Slack, I'm sure like everyone's using Slack or something like that. You post those types of KPIs, they're easy to consume. So that would be my advice. Like data is the way to talk.
So would you say if there is an engineering leader listening to us and perhaps they haven't really made an effort into communicating what their team is doing and they are now fired up about our conversation, how should they go about it? What do you think should be the first few steps?
First of all, before you start, sharing data around, make sure that you're talking about it internally within your own organization. Okay. You don't want to just go and start sharing data and everyone else on your team is like, wait, what is this data? So the first thing to do is you baseline, you talk about it internally with your team, you set some benchmarks, you make it comfortable. And there's 3 areas of data that I usually like to measure. We talked about some of the business alignment stuff, but I just want to call out there like developer experience, DevX. That's a whole category of data that's very important. How long are developers waiting for builds? How long are developers waiting to push their code? How much time are they spending in meetings? All of that kind of stuff. So there's this whole data set around DevX. That's one set of data. There's another data set, and it's made popular by Dora, if you've heard of that. That's like your cycle time, your deployment frequency, your change failure rate, your MTTR. This is measuring the flow of code. That's another category of data. And the third category of data is what we started with, those business objectives. Project delivery, capacity accuracy, planning accuracy, resource allocation. So that's the world of data, okay? And what a lot of engineering leaders are doing now is what they're calling a software metrics program. So they're saying, okay, I'm going to start this metrics program. It's totally internal. Those are the 3 things I'm going to measure, and I'm going to start reviewing it with my team and my developers. That's where you start. Next stage is I'm going to start talking to the company about it, but you start with yourself, yeah.
Awesome. So first of all, start internally and then make sure that your team is aligned with what you're noticing within your organization, and then communicate with your team that you're going to share some of this data with the rest of the company.
That's right.
Awesome. And of course, as you said, engineering leaders should definitely reach out to other departments and see if they can translate these data to the benefit of other departments as well. I love that idea.
Absolutely.
So we talked about some metrics and we talked about some of the tools. Of course, you have a tool that is capable of creating such data. Can you tell us a bit about that? How should they go about finding a software that they want to use, or what is it that you think your software is different in?
No, yeah, I mean, but our company is called LinearB, and I honestly think we do have the best product in the space, but I want to let everyone know that this is a full industry. There's worthy competitors out there. There's lots. So if you type in, like, go to Google and type in software delivery management, you'll see that there's a ton of investment money going into here, like investors. We're a highly invested company. We have competitors that are highly invested. I more so on your show just want to like raise the community awareness that there's a lot of tools out there. Some of them start with the Dora metric. Some of them start with that resource allocation. Some of them start with developer experience. Like our platform, LinearB, you get all of those. You can try it for free. But there's other free tools out there. So I would just first of all, just encourage everyone to go explore, try them out. There's a lot of good stuff out there.
Definitely. It sounds like this is a real, industry sort of. It's not like, oh, you should always communicate what your team is doing. It's more like there are data through which you can actually make your team shine within the organization.
That's absolutely right. It's all about, advocating for your team, showing the impact of your team. And honestly, the next step after all this data is improving, right? And then improvement. Like those are the steps.
With that said, I am sure that you can make mistakes when you are communicating your team's impact, or even when you're measuring the productivity or trying to gather data about your team. And who would be a better person to ask? What do you think are some of the mistakes that engineering leaders should avoid when getting into a venture like this?
There's two off the top of my head. First of all, never measure developer performance. It's not interesting. Oh, how is this developer doing versus that developer? Nothing that I said in this podcast is about measuring developer performance. For me, that's like an HR thing. You know who's doing well, who's not doing well. So one of the mistakes I make is people equating what I'm saying to measuring developer performance. And it's not that. I don't advise to do that. And the other thing that I don't advise to do, there's a few metrics that are a little dangerous out there. Velocity is one of them. If you've heard that terminology, like how many story points did we complete in this sprint? When I was talking earlier, I was talking about percentages, like planning accuracy and capacity accuracy. That's a percentage of commitment. But you never want to go and show your CEO, oh, this team, they did 100 story points this week, but last week we only did 75 story points. No, story points are a subjective data. It's an estimate. And it leads, again, to this performance conversation. So my advice is kind of like stick to what I said. It's around allocation and project delivery. It's around developer experience. It's around the flow of work out to production, but it's never around developer performance.
You have also talked about how this kind of perspective really allows engineers to connect with other departments. Can you give us maybe another story where engineers actually made a difference when communicating what they're doing, or where some misunderstanding was maybe cleared up because the engineering leader decided to communicate what their team was doing?
Yeah, you know what? The only story that I can think of is more like the founding story of like why I founded LinearB. At the last company that I was at, which was like a great company, it was called CloudLock. We were eventually acquired by Cisco Systems for a lot of money. It was a success. And when I was the VP of engineering there, I had about like 100 engineers on the team, and I was sitting on the executive at the executive table. And all of the other executives came with data. It was like the salesperson had all this sales data, right? Close rate percentages, all this stuff. Marketing had pipeline generation, lead generation. Even HR, they had like people analytics data, like they'd send out surveys and like how happy are our employees. And it was so weird because for me on the engineering side, which we kind of deal with data all the time, like what's the database performance, web, page load speeds, all of that. But there was no data that was kind of showing the worth or like kind of like how well we are working as an engineering organization that I could present back to the business. So that is actually why I founded LinearB, because I was kind of collecting that kind of data in a spreadsheet that some of my engineers were helping me to collect, so we could say, hey, look at all the great stuff engineers doing. We have KPIs too. We track our, organizational performance. We care too. So that's the only story that comes to mind for me, is our founder story of why we started LinearB.
I love that. And then here came a great product where you can help other engineers collect the same kind of data so they don't have to deal with creating their own spreadsheets.
Yep, you got it.
We've had quite the conversation. Thank you for your energy in this. We talked about how engineers should really, or engineering leaders should really pay attention to how they show up in boardrooms and what they communicate in boardrooms. We talked about the kinds of data that they should measure, how their engineers are doing or how they are experiencing their development. We talked about how we shouldn't at all measure the productivity of each and every individual contributor, because that's not going to be productive when it comes to the engineering organization. We also talked about how engineering leaders should go ahead and reach out to other departments within the organization so that they can create more allies for themselves and ultimately create a better company together with other departments or department heads. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience when it comes to communicating your engineering team's success?
No, I think I would just say, like, the passion for us, we would love to see more engineering teams and leaders, rise up, make that business impact, be a part of the business, share your KPIs. And I think the world will have even more incredible inventions and these amazing companies if we can do that.
Thank you so much. And thank you for joining Level Up Engineering. Please tell our listeners and watchers where they can follow you or your work.
Yeah, you can check out LinearB.io if you want all those metrics that I talked about. You can get them for free there. And then also you can check out the Dev Interrupted podcast. It's like a podcast similar to this one, Help Engineering Leaders Succeed.
Ken comes out every week.
That's right.
Thank you so much for joining Level Up Engineering. I hope that we can talk again, and thank you for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Dan. And thank you for staying with the Level Up Engineering podcast. This was one of the first episodes since we have our new sponsor, Apex Lab. Check them out at apexlab.io. And also, if you like this episode, share it with a friend of yours. If you like us, please rate us up to a 5-star review on your favorite podcast channel or YouTube. Today, my guest was Dan Lines, COO and co-founder of LinearB, and also host of the Dev Interrupted podcast. We talked about how engineers shall really communicate the impact of their teams. I am Karolina Tóth, and I hope to see you next time.
Thanks for staying with us. This was the Level Up Engineering Podcast by Apex Lab. Check them out at apexlab.io. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, rate our content, and share your thoughts on this episode. See you next time.